So today we're going to tackle a question that every single leader has to ask themselves at some point. What's your go-to style? Are you the type who's all about hitting that deadline no matter what? Or are you more focused on your team, on the people? Let's dive in and figure it out.
So seriously, what's your first instinct? Because, that gut reaction, it actually says a ton about your natural leadership style. And this isn't just some abstract thought experiment, right? This is a real deal, everyday challenge that leaders face all the time. It really gets to the core of what makes someone a truly effective leader.
Okay, so to really wrap our heads around these two styles, it's super helpful to look at this classic breakdown, manager versus leader. You see, the research often frames it like this. A manager is focused on efficiency. They're all about doing things right. But a leader is focused on effectiveness, doing the right things. Now, one isn't better than the other, not at all. They're like two sides of the same coin, but understanding that difference is absolutely crucial for everything we're about to talk about.
And that right there, that's the leadership dilemma in a nutshell. How in the world do you balance getting stuff done, hitting those targets, with actually supporting the people who are making it all happen? It is for sure a constant tightrope walk.
So the big question is, how do we navigate this whole thing? Well, it all starts by understanding two main styles of influence. And I want you to think of these less like, rigid boxes you have to fit into, and more like two ends of a spectrum. So let's get into it and break them down.
All right, first up, we've got task orientation. This is that doing things right side we just talked about. A leader who's task-oriented is an absolute rock star at creating clarity. They're the ones laying out the plans, defining who does what, and making sure everyone on the team knows exactly what they need to do to hit that goal. It's all about structure, process, and getting to the finish line. But, like with anything, there's a trade-off, right? On the one hand, the benefits are huge. You often get higher performance, and there's zero confusion about rules and goals. That's a big plus. But on the flip side, the research is pretty clear about the potential downside. If you focus only on the tasks, it can lead to burnout, people being less happy in their jobs, and, you guessed it, a higher chance of your best people walking out the door.
So on the other end of that spectrum, we have relationship orientation. And as the name suggests, this style is all about the people. It's focused on building that trust, that mutual respect, and making sure every person on the team feels seen, heard, and valued. This is the kind of leader who's really invested in how the team gets along and how everyone is doing on a personal level.
And yep, you guessed it, we see that same trade-off here too. The upside? You get this amazing work environment. People are genuinely happier, they call in sick less, and they're way less likely to quit. That's huge. But the potential pitfall. If you're not careful, if it's not balanced, this style can sometimes prioritize everyone getting along over hitting those tough deadlines. And when that happens, performance can sometimes suffer a bit.
And this all leads to a really, really important point. At the end of the day, both of these styles are just different ways to influence people. Just like Dr. Ken Blanchard said, successful leadership today isn't about having authority, it's about having influence. It's not about barking orders. It's about inspiring and motivating your team to move towards a shared goal, whether you're using a task-focused or a people-focused approach to do it.
Okay, but this isn't just, a bunch of good ideas or theories. This is all backed up by some serious data. We're going to dive into a study that looked at these exact styles out in the wild. So let's see what the numbers have to say. And spoiler alert, they looked at almost 4,000 people.
Yeah, so the research we're pulling from was no joke. They surveyed nearly 4,000 aspiring leaders and professionals. That's a massive group of people, which means we can be pretty confident that the findings we're about to see are solid.
So, just to give you a quick snapshot of who we're talking about, the group was about 59% female and 41% male. Just tuck that little fact away because it's going to be important in a minute.
All right, so this brings us to the first huge question the study wanted to answer. When you look at all these people, what's more common? Do we as a whole lean more towards tasks or more towards relationships? What's the default setting, And the results are actually pretty clear. The average score for relationship orientation came in at 42.7, which is in the high range. Task orientation was a bit lower at 39.2. So what does that tell us? Well, the data shows that overall, this group of professionals leans more towards a people-first, relationship-focused style of leadership.
Okay, that's interesting. But the researchers didn't just stop there. They wanted to dig a little deeper, so they asked the next logical question. Does gender make a difference here? Does it play a role in which style is more dominant? Let's take a look.
So when they looked at task orientation, the study found that men scored on average just a little bit higher, 39.55 for men versus 39.00 for women. Now, that's not a massive difference, for sure, but the researchers did note that statistically, it's a significant finding.
But check this out. When they looked at relationship orientation, the gap was way bigger. Women scored an average of 43.28, while men scored 41.99. So a much more noticeable difference there, and just like before, this was also a statistically significant finding.
Okay, so we've got these two styles. We've got some data showing how common they are and even some trends. But so what? Why does any of this actually matter in the real world? Well, it all comes down to a super important idea called person-job fit. And this, my friends, is where all this theory gets really practical.
The concept itself is pretty simple, but man, is it powerful. It's all about matching a person's natural style to what the job, the team, or the project actually needs. So picture this. You've got a team launching a huge product with a crazy deadline. They probably need a really task-oriented leader to keep everyone focused and on track. But what about a team that just went through a messy merger and morale is in the tank? They're going to need a relationship-oriented leader to come in, rebuild that trust, and bring everyone back together.
And let me tell you, when you get this right, the payoff is absolutely massive. We're not talking about tiny little improvements here. When you get the right leader in the right situation, or when a leader learns to adapt their style, you see these incredible jumps in productivity. People stick around longer, and you get a team that's actually happier and more engaged with their work. It is the ultimate win-win scenario.
So, based on all this data, the study itself makes a pretty bold recommendation. The researchers basically conclude that since women in their study scored higher on average in relationship building, organizations might really benefit from having more women in management roles. The idea is to tap into that strength to build stronger relationships and ultimately a healthier company culture.
And all of this brings us right back to you. Look, the biggest takeaway here is not that one style is better than the other. That's not it at all. The truly great leaders, they know their default style for sure, but what makes them great is that they've learned how to be flexible. They can be a taskmaster when that deadline is breathing down everyone's neck, but they can pivot in a heartbeat and become that supportive, relationship-focused leader when the team is feeling the strain. So the real question to leave you with isn't just, what's my style? It's, how good am I at reading the situation and adapting to become the exact leader my team needs right here, right now?